everybody, thanks for stopping in for our live Tuesday update here in the MyRadar studios in Orlando, Florida. I'm Chief Meteorologist Leslie Hudson. We have a lot to cover today. Of course, there's so much going on with the tropics, but also severe weather risk is ongoing in several parts of the country as well. But before we get to all of that, we always like to take a look at the app first and get to some of the business at hand, and that is, of course, the leftovers of Fred. So here's a look at what is left of Fred. National Hurricane Center issued their last advisory on Fred at 11 a.m. this morning. However, this still remains somewhat of a tropical depression. It certainly has brought in a lot of weather across the mid-Atlantic states. And I do have toggled on the power outages. I'm going to just hit a couple of the flash flood warnings and are ongoing in this area. We've seen up to 6 to 8 inches of rain in this area. Some folks have even seen 10. You just saw that there was a tornado warning. So we've also seen a tornado risk. In fact, there was a confirmation of a tornado on the ground in South Carolina, very near Clemson University earlier today. And this storm system, again, still producing a lot of weather. So as we head through the remainder of tonight, we are anticipating that risk to continue. So make sure that you've got your notifications turned on. Speaking of that risk, let's take a look at some of the cameras in the general vicinity of where this nasty weather is. And we're going to begin at Appalachian State University. This is in Boone, North Carolina. And they are getting a little bit of a break from the rain. Earlier today, they saw a bunch of torrential downpours. Thankfully, that is looking a little bit more improved. You can see some breakthroughs in the cloud deck there, but certainly there has been ongoing weather and more expected in the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Appalachians as we head into the next couple of days. Our next vantage point, this is at Lake Blue Ridge in Georgia. Here, too, they have been dealing with a lot of rain from Fred as well. Now, Fred earlier today went through metro Atlanta and caused quite a mess there. It was a huge traffic tie-up. There were several roads that were not passable due to the standing water. Thankfully, that has moved north of the Atlanta area. But as we head through the next couple of hours, again, the risk for those ponding on the roadways and localized flooding is a real significant threat. Here in downtown Orlando, we've got a couple of weather cameras here atop the MyRadar office building, and we're going to take you there first. And you can see that we have beautiful blue sky, and as inviting as that looks, let me tell you guys, it is super, super hot out there. The heat index right now in Orlando is about 103, and it's expected to get to close to 110 tomorrow. That's really, really oppressive heat for this area of the country. And of course, so many areas are sweating it out during the dog days of summer. August, typically one of the hottest months in the calendar year, and that has been no exception in the state of Florida. And we expect to see that heat index to get pretty dangerous in the Orlando area. The problem here is we're landlocked, so we don't get much of a breeze to help disperse some of the stillness in the air that helps break up some of that heat. So it's been very, very warm, and that will be an ongoing risk here in the Orlando area in the coming days. All right, back to Fred. Let's talk about what it did. So we have some video out of Panama City. This was from yesterday when the backside of the winds on Fred were pulling the water off this pool and back towards the Gulf of Mexico. Now, the winds in Panama City, by the way, were up to about 70 miles an hour at one point in those gusts. And that was some pretty intense weather. Panama City was one of the harder hit areas in terms of wind. And that we still are dealing with some residual effects of course, Fred today. We'll get into that in just a second. But let me show you this time lapse from our partners at WeatherStem. So we have a time lapse of Fred coming in. So notice, we'll keep this rolling. I think this clip is about 42 seconds. So I'll try and ad-lib this enough so you guys can see how the weather changes. Of course, Fred made landfall around 3:15 local time yesterday. And notice how the clouds kind of roll in. You kind of see some clearing, and you can see, of course, off in the distance, the Gulf. We can see those white caps as the seas really start to pick up. And as we get into the afternoon, you start to see the winds coming from the opposite direction. That's after, then you see a brief clearing there. You see after Fred moves to the north, you get a brief clearing, and then the winds come straight out of the opposite. And of course, that's once the system moves towards the north, you get the winds coming out of the opposite side. And then you can see a clearing deck late last night. I believe this time lapse stops sometime this morning, but weather much, much prettier there now. Of course, a lot of folks have to deal with cleanup in that area of Florida. Other areas that are also dealing with the tropics, well, we're going to take you to Jamaica now. This is also a very hard hit area. This is in St. Andrews. This is at the Bull Bay area, and they have that ongoing flash flooding here. several of the government officials have been urging people to stay indoors, to not venture out because it is so dangerous with Grace. And of course, Grace has gotten stronger today and is likely going to be a hurricane relatively soon before it heads off towards potentially Mexico. But it devastated the Dominican Republic and Haiti yesterday, and now it has moved over Jamaica, and again, flash flooding and mudslides, a big concern for those folks. All right, let's talk about Fred. What's going on and where is it headed? So even though the Hurricane Center is no longer issuing advisories, there is still that potential for the flooding, as I mentioned, and there's been this ongoing risk of severe storms. So there's been multiple tornado warnings today. In fact, we've had more tornado warnings today than we had yesterday when Fred was actually coming on shore. But you can see this accumulation of the radar. I've got it rolling back about 18 hours, and see how everything just bubbles up from the south, and some of those real intense storms come through parts of Georgia into South Carolina and North Carolina, and that trend will continue today. So we'll be dealing with the leftovers of Fred for the rest of this week. It's expected to move into the northeastern part of the country as we head into the second half of the work week. Infrared imagery shows, again, very disorganized. There's no clear low of center of circulation here. And again, the thunderstorm activity is much, much less intense than it was yesterday. But the fact that these are still tropical clouds and they still have a huge amount of moisture inside of them, and the atmosphere is primed and energized for these long-lasting storms, that's why we've been dealing with this localized flooding. So it's really going to be a mess for people that, again, that are on the western sides of North Carolina and South Carolina, West Virginia, and then it moves up into Pennsylvania and into New York as we get into Thursday and Friday, and then moves off near Boston as we get into Friday evening. So it's still going to be something we're talking about for the next several days. Here's a look at the futurecast. This is the Euro high resolution, starting things now, and you can see again moderate to heavy rains, localized flooding, some severe weather is also a risk. Many areas, by the way, in the Carolinas have been under tornado watches today. And then look, as we get into Thursday and Friday, it moves up through the New England states, just to the west of downtown Boston. Hopefully those folks will be spared, a big metro city, of course. And then by Friday late, we should be done with the leftovers of Fred. Of course, the moisture you see behind that is leftovers from a frontal boundary, not tropical remnants of Fred. But boy, what a mess this will be in the coming days. 5 to 7 inches through parts of New York, Pennsylvania, 3 to 5 through West Virginia. And again, the mountain ranges in the Blue Ridge and the Appalachians expected to get a fair amount of water due to that orographic lift. So localized flooding, a big problem through parts of Tennessee and over into, again, the Carolinas, northern Georgia and western South Carolina, 5 to 7 inches of rain. Besides that, of course, we've been keeping an eye on Grace. As I mentioned, this system has gotten stronger today. Hurricane Center believes that this will continue to intensify to a hurricane. Once it moves over the Yucatan Peninsula by, say, Friday afternoon, it will get a little less intense and is expected to downgrade to a tropical storm, but then re-energize back into a hurricane sometime on Friday before making landfall late Friday or early Saturday into Mexico. So most of the guidance keeps Grace away from the United States. There was some initial concerns that Grace might try to clip Texas, but because of this big ridge of high pressure that's steering Grace towards the west-northwest, we think that it's going to stay south of the U.S. But again, you want to check back into the forecast and make sure you're up to date, because things change. As we know, things changed pretty significantly with Fred. It dissipated on Saturday and then re-energized and reformed on Sunday to become a healthy tropical storm and almost a minimal Category 1 hurricane. All right, here's Henri. Thankfully, this one, again, not a threat to the U.S., but this also bears watching. I expect to do a large loop, and that's, again, just almost textbook around that big ridge of high pressure, the outer periphery. Is what Henri will do. We'll rotate on around that high pressure center and move back towards the north eventually as we get into Saturday and Sunday. But as a Category 1 hurricane, that will increase the swells across the northeastern part of the country and across the Atlantic seaboard, and they still will be dealing with Fred as well. So they're going to have a two-pronged weather event. They'll have rain from the leftovers from Fred and large ocean swells and some coastal erosion likely from Henri as we get into Friday and Saturday. So those two systems will be a huge mess. Take a look at Fred, by the way. I rolled this back. This is rolling back for about 2 days. So notice how disorganized it is late on Sunday, early on Sunday, I should say. And then it really gets its act together Sunday afternoon into Sunday night, and then just, quickly deflates as it heads up into the mid-Atlantic states, but producing a lot of weather ahead of it. And again, on the larger circulation there, we've seen quite a bit of weather that's already impacted DC. Maryland and Virginia yesterday, many areas were under flash flood warnings because of the larger rotation pulling some of that tropical air and those tropical downpours in that region of the country. So, you know, it's been incredible to see the amount of weather that this relatively disorganized system has created, but that certainly is a common signature with tropical systems. As you can see from the Storm Prediction Center, that rolled too quickly, but there is an enhanced risk for the parts of the Carolinas, and there's also a slight risk for severe weather in the state of Utah and back towards the west, so into Nevada. So we do have that risk for severe weather in the western states, but also in the Carolinas and in the foothills of the mountain ranges, where we do expect to see the potential for more severe weather. And by the way, when we're done with this live stream, we'll do a live or a severe update for you to get you guys updated on the severe weather risks. So rain totals could anywhere about 3 to 5, as I mentioned, in the next couple of days, and we're still looking at a fair amount of weather in that little notch there in parts of Utah, where we could be talking about another 3 to 5 inches of rain as well, and that risk for severe weather. Quick look at those daytime highs as we get into the forecast tomorrow. Everything has been relatively less hot across the Northeast and the Midwest, still dealing with oppressive heat across the Deep South. As I mentioned, there has been tropical air, very, very humid, very, very high heat indices, and then across the central part of the country, it's been very hot as well. Temperatures in the upper 80s. At least we got a little bit of a break through some of those western states, but of course the deserts are still just cooking there in the upper 90s, and then up in the Pacific Northwest, finally getting a little break here from those very, very hot temperatures that they were dealing with over last weekend. All right. Feel Good Friday time, you guys. Every Friday we show you videos that hopefully get you in a good mood for the weekend, and we've got one that I shot. This was last month when I was in Sapphire, North Carolina, this beautiful black bear enjoying some pizza. This was the day after the 4th of July, so the trash cans were full. These were bear-proof trash cans, by the way. But this guy managed to open the can because it wasn't closed all the way and managed to chow down on some pizza. He was loving life, shall we say, chowing down on popcorn, kettle corn I think he had, pizza, and then there was some other junk food in there as well that he got. We got to watch him for about 40 minutes. From a safe distance, we were up on a deck, but just a beautiful animal. And of course, everybody knows that you don't want to leave food out, but after the 4th of July, there was nowhere for the trash to go, unfortunately. Anyways, really cool to see him. And we will have our Feel Good Friday videos on deck for you guys coming up this Friday at the end of the fast forecast, so make sure you stick around for that. If you're in the mood for wearing some new merch, well, guess what? We can deliver. We've got our t-shirts. The MyRadar t-shirts are on sale this summer. You want to use the code SUMMER10 to get 10% off your entire order. So if you order more than one t-shirt, you will get a discount. So make sure you do that. The proceeds, or at least a portion of those proceeds, will go towards Feeding America. And that's such a great organization. We really are proud to partner with them, and would love for you guys to check out our new shirts. They are beautiful. They are super soft. They are great to sleep in. I actually sleep in mine quite a bit, but a lot of the folks here, you know, proudly wear theirs. I wear mine out too, but tend to use it as a sleeping shirt as well, because it is one of the softest cotton shirts that we have. So check that out, store.myradar.com, and you can get the very latest merch from MyRadar. All right, you guys, I think I've done everything. Let me check my little list here. I think I got it all. I want to thank you guys for stopping in and joining us. I can see Sandy in the house on YouTube, our loyal listener and viewer in South Carolina. Hopefully she's not getting too much rain there. And thank you for all the folks that are joining us on our YouTube channel and, of course, across our social media pages. We really appreciate you guys taking some time to stick around and say hi to us as we do these Tuesday updates. Try to get you guys updated on the very latest and let you know what we've got coming down the pike. So we've got some new content coming. Be looking for that. We've got some tropical features. I shot a hurricane story down in the Turks and Caicos about 10 days ago. Look for that in the coming weeks. We also have a new meteorologist that you will be meeting very soon that will be joining our team. We're super excited about that as well. So I think that's going to do it for now on behalf of Damian McFarland, who's driving the bus back there, and Matt Hyland, who's also in the house today. Thanks so much, you guys, for watching us today. If you're in the zone of Fred, stay safe out there, stay dry, and we'll see you soon.